Okay, so let's write our first test. What we need to do is run the following command. We're going to run vendor bin codecept generate, if I can just get it right, cest API post index. So codeception is going to create a test for us. We can find it in tests API post index cest. Okay, so you can see we have some boilerplate in here. Notice that our actor class has not been imported. Let's just do that. And because I'm a neat freak, let me just tidy this up. Okay, we can get rid of our before method as we do not require that now. We don't need that document or comment as well. So to test our configuration, let's see if we can hit our home page to see if everything works okay. So we need to do a isendGet, which will make a GET request to the homepage URL, and we can assert against the response code, and in this case it should be 200. If we take a look at our browser, you can see there's Laravel, like all default installations have. It's just a string that comes back in the HTML response. We can assert that we see this by doing I can see response contains Laravel. Okay, so if we run this test, it technically should pass. So we just have to SSH into our vagrant box. Remember, I'm using an alias of VS. Okay, so now let's go into our code directory and this time run vendor bin codecept run API. So that's going to run all the tests in the API test suite, but that's okay since we only have one at the moment, which is try to test. And it's just taking some time here. And okay, that's good. It's come back with one test, 2 assertions. So that's good. That means our configuration in our API test suite is doing what we need it to do. So our API is going to have an endpoint named post. If we send a GET request to this endpoint, we will see all posts from the database. We don't have anything as it stands. So the first thing I would like to do is create the index endpoint. I would also like the endpoint to return a 200 response code. So we know what we want to create. Let's try to create our test to reflect this intent. I write tests using the arrange, act, and assert pattern. So just a good way to structure our tests. In our act, we're going to have I send get, and we're going to send it to post. Yep, that should be fine. Okay, and next what we need to do is then assert. Now our assertion is going to be just for the response code for now. So we need to type in IC response code is 200. Just fill in 200. Okay. So this should be fine for now. We don't need anything in our arrange section. If we run this code again, well, our test, what should happen is it should fail. And that's the basis of TDD. We write a test that first fails, you can see it fails, and now we need to write the code to make that test pass. So what it's doing is it's keeping us on track to exactly what we want to achieve. And what we want to achieve here is creating an endpoint that returns 200. So we need to create a controller, and we can use PHP artisan make controller API and post controller. So this is going to create a controller. Remember to pass in the -r flag. This will bring up some boilerplate in the controller for a REST controller, should we say. Okay, let's open up our controller. Here we go. So our post controller contains a lot of boilerplate here from Laravel. We're just going to keep it in there for now. All we care about is this index method. It doesn't return anything at the moment, but it is a method that we can hook up a root to. So let's take a look at our api.php file, get rid of the default template stuff there, and type root API resource. Now this is going to generate all the API endpoints, or let's say URLs or routes that is going to be associated with the term post or resource post. We're going to have API post controller, which is the controller we just created. We can clear this up and type PHP artisan root list. So this will list out all the routes in our application. You can see it's quite a few. It's a table that's just not structured correctly because my font's too large. But just in here, you can see we have API post index, and it maps to our post controller. So this is good stuff so far. Let's clear that up. And now we can run our tests again. And this should pass. It actually fails. Let's find out why it fails though. So we have IC response 200, ICM get to post, and we're getting a 404, which means that we are potentially pointing to the wrong place. You can see we have index, that's fine. Let's get rid of this backslash. Go into our configuration, I believe, for tests, API suite, and let's just put API at the end here. Because when you create a resource or an API resource for routes, what it'll do is put everything after API /. So it prefixes all the routes with API. Now if we run our test again, it passes. So that's good, we have a passing test.